Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Always excited to dig into some interesting material.
Today we're tackling job interviews, but with a twist.
At Frisk.
Yeah, you guys gave us some fascinating research on how people from villages and cities experience these things so differently.
That's a really intriguing angle. I'm curious to see what we uncover.
Me too. It's not going to be your typical interview tips kind of thing.
Right.
We're going deeper, looking at how your background, like where you're from, can really shape the whole interview experience.
Yeah, like how your cultural context, those unspoken rules you pick up growing up, play a huge role in how you approach those situations. It's not just about what you say, it's how you say it, what's expected, all that jazz.
Exactly. So let's start with the village perspective.
Okay.
The research really highlighted this idea that in many villages, job opportunities, well, they can be limited, right?
Makes sense. Smaller communities, more specialized roles, right?
In the interview process, it's often way more straightforward than what you'd see in a city.
I can see that. Practical skills, reliability, it's all about what you can actually do in that specific context.
It's like the focus is on real-world skills, those things that really matter in day-to-day life.
Exactly. And, that reflects the values of those communities too.
Yeah.
Honesty, directness, a focus on tangible experience. It's not about fancy resumes or buzzwords. It's about proving you can get the job done.
And speaking of real-world skills, the research even included some examples of those super straightforward interview questions you might hear in a village. Things like,
Oh, yeah, I saw those.
how have you contributed to your community? Or what practical skills can you bring to this job?
It's so direct. No beating around the bush, no trick questions, just getting to the heart of what matters.
And you know what else stood out?
What's that?
The recommended phrases for village interviews, they're all about clear, concise communication. Things like,
I have experience in.
exactly. Or, one of my strengths is, you're not trying to impress with fancy language. You're just laying it all out there, confidently and honestly.
Which, again, makes perfect sense in those village contexts, right? It's about being upfront about what you can offer, how you can be a valuable part of that community through your skills and your experience.
Now, get ready for a shift, because things get a lot more, how should I put it?
More strategic,
Yeah.
maybe a little more intense.
Yeah. Strategic, intense, maybe even a little bit intimidating when we move to the city perspective.
Buckle up.
Competition is fierce. You've got structured formats, multiple rounds of interviews.
Sometimes even video calls for it.
Video calls. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
What do you think drives that contrast?
Well, think about it. In cities, you're not just competing with a handful of people you might have grown up with. You're up against a massive pool of candidates, many with similar qualifications on paper. You've got to stand out, showcase what makes you unique, and prove you can not only do the job, but also thrive in that fast-paced, competitive environment.
And that's where things like presentation, how you articulate your skills, even the specific language you use, become super important.
Absolutely. It's not just about what you've done, it's about how you talk about it. You need to use the language of business. Showcase your ambition, your strategic thinking, your ability to solve problems, and contribute to the company's goals.
So we're not just talking about, I'm a hard worker anymore.
Right.
It's more like, I'm passionate about driving growth, or I'm skilled at implementing innovative solutions. It's a whole new level of, well, sophistication, I guess you could say.
It's about speaking their language, showing them you understand their world, their challenges, their aspirations, and how you can be a part of that.
And that shift is crystal clear when you look at those example questions from the research, for city interviews.
Yeah, I was looking at those.
Instead of just focusing on what you've done, they want to know where you're headed.
Future-oriented.
Exactly. Things like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or tell me about a time you faced a challenge and how you overcame it. They're looking for ambition, problem-solving skills, that potential for growth within the company.
It's not just about filling a position. It's about finding someone who can contribute to the company's future success, someone who's eager to learn, grow, and evolve alongside the company.
And even those recommended phrases for city interviews, they reflect that, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just, I can do this, it's, I believe I can contribute to your company by, or I'm passionate about making a positive impact by.
It's about showcasing your drive, your initiative, your desire to make a real difference, not just clock in and clock out.
So we've got these two contrasting worlds, right?
two very different landscapes.
On one hand, the village setting where community matters, practicality is key, and you communicate directly, honestly. And on the other, the city environment where competition's through the roof and you've got to stand out, showcase your ambition, and speak the language of business.
And that difference raises a really important question. What happens when someone from a village tries to navigate that city interview process? How do they bridge that gap, present themselves effectively in an environment that might feel completely foreign?
It's a huge challenge, right? Almost like stepping into a whole new world. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into next.
Let's do it.
It's a big leap, isn't it? Going from a place where everybody knows your work to suddenly having to prove yourself in a whole new way.
Yeah, it can be a real culture shock. It's like stepping into a whole different world with different rules, different expectations. It can be pretty disorienting, to be honest.
And the research really emphasized that, how challenging it can be to adapt to that very structured, almost formal interview format you see in cities. It's like a whole new language you got to learn.
Exactly. It's not just about the words themselves. It's about the whole approach, the way you present your skills and experiences.
So for someone trying to make that transition, from a village to a city interview setting, what's the key to bridging that gap? Where do they even start?
Well, based on what I've seen and the advice from the research, it all comes down to practice and preparation. The more familiar you become with that city-style interview format, the more confident you'll feel.
Makes sense. Like, the more you practice, the less intimidating it becomes.
Exactly. And the research actually had a great suggestion. Mock interviews,
Yeah.
like a dress rehearsal for the real deal.
Mock interviews, that's a great idea. You can practice those key phrases, get feedback on your delivery, work out those nerves in a safe environment.
Yeah, and you can even try different scenarios, different types of questions, different ways of responding. It's all about building that confidence, getting comfortable with the flow of things.
But it's not just about memorizing answers, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be more than just a script.
Oh, definitely. It's about understanding the message you want to convey, adapting your communication style to fit that city context.
Okay, so how would that look in practice?
Well, let's say they ask you about your weaknesses.
Right.
In a village setting, admitting a weakness might be seen as a negative thing.
Right. You don't want to seem like you're not capable.
But in a city interview, it's an opportunity to show self-awareness, a willingness to learn and grow.
So instead of saying, I'm bad at this, you could say something like,
One area I'm working on is, or I'm actively trying to improve my skills in.
yeah, that shows initiative, a desire to improve, which are highly valued in those competitive city environments.
Yes, exactly. And that same idea applies to talking about your career goals. In a village, your aspirations might be more about contributing to your community directly, meeting those immediate needs.
Right, practical, hands-on contributions.
But in a city interview, it's about showcasing your ambition, your long-term vision, how you see yourself growing within the company, contributing to its success down the road.
So instead of just saying, I want to do this, you'd frame it more in terms of growth, impact.
Exactly. Phrases like, I'm interested in developing my skills in, or I'm passionate about making a positive impact by. It shows you're thinking big, aiming high, which aligns with that city mindset.
It's like you're speaking their language, showing them you understand their world.
Absolutely. It's about connecting your personal goals with the company's objectives, demonstrating that you're not just looking for a job, but an opportunity to build a career, to make a real contribution.
So even though we've been focusing on the differences, I'm curious, are there any qualities that stand out no matter where you're interviewing? Those universal things that impress interviewers across the board?
Oh, for sure. Honesty, for one, being genuine, showing enthusiasm for the work, a desire to learn and contribute. Those qualities shine through regardless of your background or where you're from.
It's about showing you're not just there for the paycheck, you're genuinely invested in the work and the company.
Exactly. And that authenticity, that passion, it resonates with any interviewer, village, or city, no matter the context.
So it's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about finding that balance between being yourself and understanding the expectations of that particular environment.
It's about adapting your communication style, showcasing your strengths and experiences in a way that connects with the company culture while staying true to who you are.
Which takes practice, preparation, and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone.
But the rewards of doing that, of adapting and presenting yourself effectively, they can be huge. It can open doors to opportunities you might not have even imagined before.
It's about expanding your horizons, taking on new challenges, and growing both personally and professionally. And that's what makes this whole conversation so fascinating.
It's about more than just acing an interview. It's about communication, cultural understanding, and ultimately creating a more inclusive and dynamic work environment where people from all backgrounds can thrive.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about, something that goes beyond just getting the job and gets at the heart of what we've been talking about. So imagine for a moment that you're the interviewer.
Ooh, interesting. Switching perspectives like that can be really insightful.
You have two candidates in front of you, one from a village and one from a city. What qualities would you prioritize in each candidate? How might your expectations differ and why?
That's a great question. It forces us to examine our own assumptions, how our backgrounds and experiences shape our perceptions of what makes a good candidate.
That's such a powerful thought, right? Like, we as interviewers have to be aware of our own biases, our own assumptions about what success looks like.
It's a two-way street, absolutely. Both the job seeker and the interviewer need to be mindful of those cultural differences, those unspoken expectations that come into play.
Because at the end of the day, a successful interview, it's not just about ticking boxes or giving the right answers. It's about connection.
It's about building understanding, having a genuine conversation, and yeah, maybe even challenging your own perspectives a little bit along the way.
Because imagine if we only ever hired people who looked, sounded, and thought exactly like us.
Oh, that'd be a disaster. We'd miss out on so much talent, so much creativity, so many different ways of approaching problems and finding solutions.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole topic so important, so relevant, I think. It's about recognizing that talent and potential, they come from everywhere. It's about creating a world where everyone has a chance to shine, regardless of where they're from or what their background is.
And for anyone listening who's maybe feeling a little discouraged, like they don't quite fit the mold, just remember, your unique perspective is valuable. Your experiences matter.
Don't try to be someone you're not. Embrace your background, prepare thoroughly, and communicate with confidence.
And even if things don't go your way in a particular interview, remember, it's all a learning experience. Every interview, every interaction, it helps you grow, refine your skills, and get a little closer to where you want to be.
It's about more than just landing the job, right? It's about expanding your horizons, taking on new challenges, and building a career that you're truly passionate about.
But who knows? Maybe that next interview will be the one that opens the door to an amazing opportunity.
So to everyone out there, whether you're prepping for a village interview, a city interview, or anything in between, remember, your voice deserves to be heard. Your story matters.
Go out there and rock it.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of job interviews. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration.
It's been a pleasure as always.